Hey, y'all. It should come as no surprise that in this episode, as with every episode, we're just fucking winging it. And part of the beauty of it is the unqualified nature of the research that's happening. And one of the goofs that we made, or that I made, was substituting the name of the family member that was in the Supreme Court case as Costanza instead of what it actually is, which is Gonzalez.
Yeah, another example of the white man keeping the brother man down.
I don't know why. I don't know why.
It's still ethnic. It's like
Right.
Italian. So it's like a nicer brown.
I don't know if I had Seinfeld on the brain or what it was. What's the deal with these Supreme Court cases? Am I right?
But I think you also sell yourself a little bit short. Like, you do research for this.
I do.
You just goofed. We
Yeah.
all goof.
Yeah.
So, would you like me to edit in the proper word? Or
Yeah.
the proper name?
I think we just drop it in there. And hopefully it'll still be enjoyable, if not more amusing,
Yeah.
due to the sudden nature of that drop in.
Cool. Okay. So, with the magic of editing, it's like it never happened.
All wrongs will be righted.
Except for this preamble. Cool.
Enjoy. Hey, Ryan.
Hi.
Hi.
So,
You've seen me.
yeah.
I've told you
We're
that.
recording in the same room
What?
this time.
You're telling me you're here in this room with me?
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah.
Well, that explains the reaction that my body is having. I've told you that story about how when I lived in China, they gave me a Chinese name.
Yeah. What was it again?
The translation was white like sail.
That's right. I can't believe they're allowed to do that.
Well, it's objective,
Sure.
right?
I guess.
But it did make me a little irritated because I remember the other people in my group getting less objective names, like
Yeah.
laughs like a sunrise or things like that, you know?
Yeah. White like sail.
White
That's
like
so messed
sail.
up.
It was because I don't think of that as being my defining characteristic, but maybe that was the biggest impression that I'd made. I was like the whitest person they'd ever seen, ever.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know.
The reason I'm bringing it up
Uh-huh.
is, you know how I'm not afraid of the police.
I do know that because you so white.
Because unfortunately, fortunately, my whiteness has created this bubble of delulu, as the youth might say,
What?
like a smothering blanket of delusion. You know, delulu.
No, I don't know that. Is that another stupid what was the other one? The one that I really hate right now?
Is it Riz?
Yes.
Like how I'm putting on
Why
the
can't we
Riz?
just say the word? Why
Putting on the Riz.
This is going to be a segment in our show where I just yell, get off my lawn about something.
Yeah.
Why can't we just say the word? Why is that so hard?
Because that's how language works, Ryan.
No, I disagree.
You say all kinds of stuff that the olds of the decades before us would be like, why can't we just say the words? What does tight actually mean?
Yeah, I do that. But so that I'm not abbreviating it or anything.
Okay.
What does Riz mean again?
Charisma.
Just say that.
It's long.
Oh my God. We're getting off topic.
Yeah. I don't think I'm putting the Riz on police,
How dare you?
but I've honestly never had what I would consider a bad interaction with the police.
Yeah, we've talked about this, and I think I described it as like a shield, like in a video game. If you have a shield potion or something, you just walk around and take all kinds of damage and not really have to worry about it.
And yet,
That's your whiteness / prettiness.
well, I don't even think of it as a shield because I don't feel like I'm taking damage, really, from
Sure.
that.
Well,
I
I
think
guess.
of it,
Go ahead.
oh,
Sorry.
as well as more of like stealth mode, or like in The Walking Dead when they smear the zombie gore all over themselves,
yeah.
so that they just kind of blend in and the zombies don't attack them.
I always want to throw up when they do that.
Yeah, I'm sorry to bring it up.
I was gonna say like Harry Potter's cloak, invisibility cloak,
Sure.
something like that. But I mean, you get the idea of what I'm.
Yeah,
trying to get at.
and even that maybe isn't the best comparison because it's not an invisibility thing. It's not like I go unnoticed. It's more like I go. I'm not perceived as a threat,
Right.
and I'm under the illusion that I will be protected. Like when I've gotten pulled over.
Yeah. Are we gonna tell that story on the podcast for the world and for God and everyone to hear?
Have we not already?
I don't think so.
So every time I've been pulled over, I've gotten away scot-free.
Right. And you tell me this, and every time I get so mad.
Well, it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean that's great for you. I wish I had that kind of superpower. It's just not in the cards for a brother. Because I'm brown. I'm a brown brother.
You chocolato hermano.
Right. Well, nobody could see me.
No.
Not even on YouTube.
No. You're the voice of God, just off camera, always. Well, that story that you're referring to, yeah, sure, fuck it, I'll tell it. I don't care. The police already know. It's a recording somewhere. You know, it's a body cam that they watch every once in a while.
Oh, that officer saved it and took it home. All right, tell the story so that people know.
Okay, so I was driving from my apartment to your home before we lived together, obviously. Mm-hmm. And it was nighttime, probably like 10.
Yeah, something
Like that.
Late in the evening. And I knew that it was late enough that it's not like I was going to be sitting down for dinner with you and the children. So I just came in my nightgown. Right.
And it wasn't just any nightgown. Because I was coming to you for the purposes of staying over, it was like a sexy nightgown.
Giggity.
Like it was low cut.
Yeah.
I still have it. I wear it all the time.
Yeah.
And it had like a bunch of lace here. Like there's probably a 2 centimeter separation between where the lace ends and the nips begin. Right? It's silky. The rest of it's silky.
Speaking of all of this, I told Johnny that we were recording an episode tonight, and he goes, "All right, I can't wait."
Fuck. Skipping ahead. I was driving, not on the freeway, not on the highway, but down like 99, which is a thoroughfare, but the speed limit is 45.
Right.
And I think I was driving like 48, 50.
Yeah, I mean,
it was within the realm. It was within the realm, but it was over. Yeah. And the police of Tigard have shit all to do. So they like to police that part. And I knew that, but I was hustling.
You had somewhere to be.
I really did. And I got pulled over and I like felt the cold sweat, even though nothing had happened to me before. I was still nervous and pulled over. And then the police officer, he comes around to the side, he shines in, and I wasn't trying to Riz.
Just use the word.
But my natural charisma just radiated off me, I guess. I am always apologetic because I feel like I'm doing something wrong all the time. So if someone calls me out, I just assume there's like a dozen things that it could be, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, my tags are probably expired. I probably have a brake light out. Who knows?
Oh, I've seen. I mean, I've been like grocery shopping with you, and when we pay for groceries, and you need to like add a pack of gum or something, it's like you're apologizing.
I'm so sorry. I'm a piece of shit.
Yeah, right.
Piece of shit for a piece of gum, you know?
So
forgive me.
Like, being pulled over, I'm sure that's in overdrive.
I try not to be insane about it, but I am right up front. And if I think I know maybe what it was, I go, oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I was clearly speeding. I'm a fuck. Do what you got to do. Just forgive me. If it's a ticket, it's a ticket. And this police officer gave me the full up, down, then back up, then to the middle, and then up again. And then a nice sweep to finish off.
Yeah.
And was like, where are you going? And I said, I'm just going to my boyfriend's house. I know.
And then he starts writing angrily, boyfriend. Doubles the fine.
Exactly. And that comes out too.
Yeah.
But he was super chill, and he was just like, all right, little lady, just be safe out there and take your time. And I said, noted. And he let me go. And I got no ticket, and sure enough, made my way to your home, and we had a lovely evening.
I hate that story for many reasons. So what are we talking about today?
Well, the second story I'll bring up before I share the topic with you is, do you remember there was that drive-by shooting a couple weeks ago? Mm-hmm. Very scary for me. I haven't witnessed something like that ever, I think.
Yeah.
And I called the police right away. Apparently, I was the first person to call them. So they wanted to talk to me. At no point in that whole process did I think, A, the police wouldn't come.
Yeah.
B, the police wouldn't listen. And C, that I would be prosecuted in any way.
Right.
In any way.
Uh-huh.
That's because I just assume that the police will protect me. Right. And us as a society.
Doing the thing that is on the side of their cars.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wrong. Ba-dam.
Oh, you don't even know.
You caught me off guard with that one. I was like, wow, this is going to be the longest intro ever.
Yeah. Nice. Turns out, false.
Okay.
Have you heard of the case
Gonzalez
versus Castle Rock?
Oh, yeah. Well, where? I don't know.
So
Gonzalez
versus Castle Rock was a pretty landmark Supreme Court case. And in that case, the Supreme Court basically confirmed what a lot of us already felt in our bones. Not me.
In your white bones.
But in the brown bones. Mm-hmm. And beyond. And certainly much more savvy white bones. People have long suspected maybe the police aren't there to help. And the Supreme Court in this case confirmed that, quote, the police have no special duty to protect their citizens.
What?
No special duty. So what happened in the case, right, was essentially this woman, Jessica
Gonzalez.
She had a restraining order against her soon-to-be ex-husband. She had three daughters, 3 kids. And part of the restraining order was that he had to call if he was going to come visit the children. And if he didn't, the restraining order would be put into effect, right?
Okay.
To your knowledge, what does a restraining order do?
It's an order from a court or judge or whatever for one person to, I mean, like, to stay away like a certain distance from somebody or a group of people or something like that.
Yeah. Limitations on contact.
Right.
What happens, to your knowledge? You don't have to be an expert on this. I'm certainly not. That's the whole point of the show. But what happens if someone were to violate the restraining order and then the restrainer were to report that?
They get arrested.
They get arrested.
Right.
Theoretically.
Yeah.
Right? No.
What?
No special duty. In this case, she was in her kitchen and she heard kids playing out there. And you know, kids, even our child, he be screaming all the time. Sometimes I think it'd be hard to tell. Often when I've been near an elementary school in particular, I'm like, those kids could be like psycho. And I would have no idea. Like the screaming is so intense. I lived by an elementary school before, and at 3 p.m. and 12 p.m., all hell could be breaking loose. I wouldn't know. Or it could just be recess.
Yeah.
So she heard screaming and she thought it's just my kids. And then everything went silent. And she's like, and she goes outside. Her kids are gone. And that happened at like early afternoon. She calls the police. She calls the police. From like 5 p.m. to midnight, she calls and calls and calls. They're like, hang in there. You know, he'll probably bring him back. They always bring him back, you know.
What?
Yep. Finally, she goes to the police department. And she's not just some random person. She was a custodian at the police agency.
She actually worked. They knew this
They
woman.
knew her. Yeah. And they're like, it'll be fine, you know. Eventually, the guy shows up at the police department and just starts just opening fire
at the police department?
At the building. People don't usually do that unless they want to get killed by the police.
Sure. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Sure enough.
Like it's a provoking action.
Right. It's suicide by cop is what it's usually called. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
And people don't usually do that unless they've got nothing else to lose, right?
Yeah.
Sure enough, the police come out, they kill the guy, right?
Yeah.
And when they go check his truck.
No.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
All three of them. Yeah.
Man.
Devastating, right?
Right. Yeah.
As you can imagine. And they didn't even let her see the bodies of her kids until the funeral. They were like, you can't see them.
Where is this?
Castle Rock. Pause. Colorado? Colorado.
Okay. They like guns in Colorado. That makes sense.
They do like guns in Colorado.
I don't actually know if that makes sense or not.
Yep, they do. They got mountains.
Mountains and guns and bears and boots and cowboy hats.
My. Terrible.
Stupid.
So
I'm going to get fired.
100%. From this job, if nothing else. No, that's okay. You have no special duty to be serious about this, just like the cops.
Heyo.
So Jessica Gonzalez, she files a suit against the police agency saying that they didn't enforce the restraining order, and as a result, her kids lost their lives unnecessarily. They had a duty to protect them and to protect her, if nothing else, just to enforce the order.
Right.
It got kicked all the way up to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And the lawyer for the police is basically saying there was never any enforceable contract for them to actually intervene. And Ruth Bader Ginsburg was like, rest in peace. She was like, well, then what's the point of the police? Like,
yeah. Well, what's the point of a restraining order if it doesn't serve as the contract?
There are elements to the restraining order that make it more of a process, is what the lawyer argued, as opposed to an immediate enforceable action.
Fuck the lawyer that did this.
Oh, you know, you could tell in his voice, because there are recordings of it, where he was just kind of like, I know.
Oh my God.
That's right, Ruthie. It is pretty fucked.
That's insane.
Yeah. So she's like, wait, you're telling me that essentially there's no like responsibility on the part of the police to actually intervene.
Yeah.
And he said, no, there's not. there's nothing in the Constitution that says that they have to intervene. And she's like, well, what about the 14th Amendment? And the 14th Amendment it basically says that like there should be no infringement of rights and liberties for any citizen or person born in the United States on the part of the state. But it's really just to protect you from the state, not for the state to protect you.
What? Say that again?
So it's like that part of the Constitution is there to protect people from being unconstitutionally discriminated against by the state, thus infringing upon their rights or liberties. What about right to life, you might say? Well, fuck that. The police don't have anything to do with that.
Wow.
The protect and serve thing is a motto. It is not an enforceable code.
Yeah, okay, so it's like a well, you said motto, but like PR talk.
Yeah. And the restraining order thing, he was saying it gave her rights against her husband, which are enforceable through like a contempt of the court type thing process, right? And that's enforceable by asking the police to enforce them. Asking.
Isn't that what she did?
Well, yes. But the important part is that the police are not obligated to respond. She has the ability to ask, but the police have discretion.
Yeah.
Under the reading of the statute, under the lawful reading of what that means, the police have discretion.
Okay. This is blowing my mind a little bit. I have questions.
Give me your questions.
So, oh man.
Yeah.
It's a lot. This is a lot to process. So I'm a little, it's very clear how you're saying it, but I'm confused by the purpose of them to begin with then.
Totally.
Do you know what I mean?
The purpose of the police, like it goes back depending on what police you're talking about, like where, right?
Yeah.
In the case of the US, unfortunately, a lot of areas' original police were kind of like the original slave catchers.
Oh, okay.
You know, like who you would call to get your property back.
Sure.
And in that way, not exclusively, but in that way and beyond and before, the police were really there to protect property, to protect your stuff, right?
Yeah.
From burglary or from you robbing a place, right?
Yeah, but if you've ever been robbed, I mean, ask anybody who's ever had something stolen from them. They don't even do that anymore.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when I got my rental car broken into up in Tacoma, Washington, yeah. They came. I expected them to come. They came. They got a description of everything. And I was like, sweet, find the guy. That'll be great. Nope.
Yeah.
Never heard from him again. The only thing that benefited me to do, to file that report and give them that info, was to pass that on to my employer and show, yep, I got robbed. See?
It's official.
The police said it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You can't fire me for losing your shit. The police said it.
Yeah.
By contrast, right, and they chose not to follow up with anything because, like, at the end of the day, how valuable was my shit, really?
Right.
By contrast, many years before, when I was working at my parents' hotel and some random guest swiped my iPad off of the front desk,
right,
I suspected who it was, called the police. They were like, well, which room are they in? And I'm like, they're in this room, and they're just kind of acting sketchy. They chose, because they had fuck all to do, to come all the way from Pismo Beach and to investigate, right?
Yeah.
And then sure enough, the thief and his associates fled the hotel, started scooting around town, and they were like, exciting! So they chased him from like bar to bar in tiny little Avila. And when they found him, they found my iPad in his, or they didn't find my iPad in his stuff, but they found like drug paraphernalia. So they were like, enforceable.
Yeah, right.
So they took him in, and he admitted to stealing the iPad. Later, I found it, and they asked me how much it was worth.
You were like, oh, it was here the whole time. No, you found it in the room.
A customer at the coffee bar was like, I found this iPad at the beach. Do you know who it might belong to? And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? It was my iPad. It still had battery and everything. It was like a week later. But the police officer had asked me how much the iPad was worth. And I was like, I don't know. It was like 4 years old at that point. So, and it had some scratches. Probably not worth any more than like $150. And he's like, how about new? And I was like, new? I don't know.
New 4 years ago.
Yeah, like $500. And he was like, but you had like insurance on it and stuff, right? Maybe a case. And I'm like, sure. And he's like, so say 1,000. And I'm like,
God damn.
1,000 maybe if it was like the souped up version. He's like, souped up version might even be like, what, 1,200, 1,400? I'm like, maybe. And he's like, got it. And he wrote it down. And I got restitution checks from that motherfucker for like 5 years. They garnished his wages and stuff, and I got a check in the mail for years.
Nuts.
You best believe I was watching when that guy got let out of jail. I was like, please don't come for me. They made me do it.
I only wanted 150.
I just want 150 bucks. I really just wanted my iPad back.
Yeah.
But it's a perfect.
You did get it back.
And I did.
And money.
Without any help from him. He never admitted where he put it. He just admitted that he took it. Anyway. He went to jail for the drugs, not for my iPad, which is its own thing, right?
Yeah.
Policing people for drugs. In any case, those were two totally different situations. One where like my shit was like the dude smashed the window of my car, took my shit, but I wasn't there. In the other, and nothing was followed up on. Never got that shit back. In the other case, the guy took my iPad while I was there, but it wasn't nearly as like threatening or violating feeling.
Yeah.
Because my shit wasn't smashed.
Right.
But it was still like, what the fuck? And it was just because the police decided to intervene that I got anything as a result of that. Certainly that guy was caught. And it was also just kind of circumstance. Like I had no idea who the guy was that broke into my car, but I had a pretty good idea who took the iPad.
Yeah.
So either way, it was choice of the police agency. And that's true for anything. Have you heard of tort law?
No.
Tort law is the genre of law enforcement, not police, but the enforcement of law surrounding civil cases where like what happens when one person hurts another person. Uh-huh. And part of tort law is determining responsibility of care, right? And there's basically like ambiguity, right, around like what happens if you're walking down a street with a low bridge and you see an old lady like stumble and fall off the bridge into the water, right? But it's low enough that you could very easily reach in and help her, you know, and get her out of there, but you don't.
Wait, who have you been talking to?
The Beaverton City Police. And she drowns, right? And she dies. You're not liable.
Not my fault. I was minding my own. Anyway.
Well, and that's why you're not in jail, Ryan, is because tort law would say you're not liable for that, right?
Yeah, but isn't there like a Good Samaritan thing?
Well,
or is that just like...
There are special cases where, for example, if grandma fell off of the bridge and into the little water and you helped her out, but in doing so, you dislocated her shoulder, right? Uh-huh. That might fall under some Good Samaritan stuff where you were just trying to help, right? So if she filed a civil case against you by saying, yeah, he saved me, but he pulled my shoulder out. Now I can't use that arm because I'm old. So grandma could sue you, right? And there might be some protections with the Good Samaritan stuff. But very rarely are you actually obligated to help somebody else, even when you could easily help, even when it leads to their harm or suffering.
Okay.
Unless there is already a special relationship, in the eyes of the law that would preclude you to help them, such as if you were the guardian of a child or of an elderly person, like you were the caretaker of grandma.
Yeah.
Or if, like a hotel, for example, needing to have locks on the doors of the hotel room to protect the people who are staying there. Like there's a special agreement that if you stay here, you will be safe, you know?
Yeah.
There's still that disclaimer, though, like your valuables are not under any special protection. You know, if they go missing, so be it. But there's like a responsibility on the part of the hotel to have some measure of protection in place for their guests. But police and citizens, no. There is no special relationship clause for that.
Okay.
For if the police see you getting stabbed or getting robbed or drive-by shooting and you report it and they could still intervene. No, they're not liable at all to intervene there. And that's come up often now, especially in regards to school shootings.
Oh, like the Uvalde thing.
Yeah.
Can we go back to, I want to talk more about that, but there's something that I had a question on that just, I formulated the question in my head, so I want to ask it.
Give it to me.
In the case of was it
Gonzalez
versus Castle Rock? So was that the first time that it's ever been argued in court that this is or isn't the responsibility of the police to protect and serve?
Definitely not. There have been a lot of other cases, as you can imagine, throughout the history of the U.S., where people have thought that the police should have intervened in a case and didn't.
Gonzalez
versus Castle Rock is just kind of like the landmark case that people think of, particularly because it was ruled against her.
Right. So there's already precedent.
Totally.
For it, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah. And the precedent actually that the defense tried to argue with, was that
Gonzalez
side tried to argue with was that there was precedent in regards to like property laws, like the restraining order was enforceable maybe through some property clause. But when they tried to explore like what property would have been at risk, they couldn't really come up with a good answer, right? Because the kids aren't really property, you know?
Yeah.
That would come into harm.
I mean, now we're like armchair lawyering a little bit.
That's the problem.
But doesn't it seem reasonable to make the step from, okay, they're there to protect your property, right? But what you just said about the Samaritan thing, she's also responsible legally to her children.
Yeah.
And in order to carry out that responsibility, she needs the help of the police to do it.
Okay, I'm so glad you brought this up because there are very few situations where the police are maybe more obligated, still not, right? But maybe more obligated to intervene. But it has to meet really specific criteria. So the first one is that there has to be direct contact between you and the police saying, I'm going to need help with this, right?
Yeah.
And second, the police have to agree to help you.
Insane to me still.
Yeah.
Okay.
Be like, okay, I see you're about to get stabbed. I'm going to come help you.
Right. Like, ooh, I don't like knives.
3, the police need to have knowledge and agree to that knowledge that not helping will definitely lead to harm or suffering.
All right.
Which is assuming a lot on the part of what's happening in the police's mind, right?
Yeah.
And 4, this one's really weird, is that the police need to have proof that the person asking for help relied on the police for protection and changed their behavior as a result, meaning like they didn't protect themselves as they otherwise would have if they'd known the police weren't going to get involved. For example, oh no, I'm getting stabbed, but the police are going to help me, so I'm just going to lay here.
Oh, okay.
Because they're going to be here any minute, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if you didn't have that assumption, then maybe you'd try to fight back a little bit, right?
Yeah.
That's a lot of clauses involved, a lot of nuance involved in the part of assuming on all sides.
Right.
That, yeah, she probably thought, yeah, I've had direct contact with the police. I fucking work there. Mm-hmm. I've filed my restraining order. I've done everything I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
The court has signed over on the restraining order. I've called the police. I've asked for help. I went to the police station, demanded help. The police said, yeah, this is pretty crazy. They'll be back, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So they haven't really agreed to help, right? And as far as having direct knowledge that if they don't help, someone's going to get hurt, they don't know that. Uh-huh. There's custody disputes all the time.
Yeah, and it's their dad.
It's their dad.
So you wouldn't assume that something like that would happen.
You shouldn't assume, maybe, right?
Yeah.
And then as far as number 4 goes of the person proving that they relied on the police for protection, what was her behavior supposed to be?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
She thinks she has the restraining order that's enforceable. She calls the police. What else was she supposed to do? Go searching around town for the guy herself, all alone? For where? You know?
Yeah.
The stabbing thing is actually interesting because, I don't like knives. There's this other case of this guy in New York, and there was a serial stabber on the loose. Uh-huh. And there were hundreds of police officers on the hunt for this guy, right? And they knew they had a tip-off that he was on the subway. And so there were tons of police officers down there, including on the very train that the guy ended up being on. And the dude, he's a serial stabber. He's on the run. So, of course, he whips out the knife on the train car. The police officers are one train car over, and they see it happen. Uh-huh. And almost everybody in the train car is like, fuck this. And they, run to the next car.
Right.
But there's one guy, a civilian, that's like, I'm going to get involved and tries to fight this guy off. And he gets hella stabbed. And there's police officers at the window. And they don't... Just watching. They already know who this guy is, right?
Yeah.
They got a bolo. Be on lookout. That's police stock.
Okay.
But they just watch. And he gets violently stabbed, stabbed in the head, stabbed in the neck. There's this other civilian on the train car who also tries to help. Eventually, the guy gets taken down, but it's not until the dude is down, the serial stabber guy, that the police finally go, okay. And they open up the door and they handcuff him, right?
Wow.
We did it, right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the guy that actually intervened is pumping out blood. He survived, and he sued the police department.
Right.
Same thing. No obligation. No obligation. Even knowing who that individual was, that he was already being searched for being a violent offender, violent criminal. They watched it happen, not obligated.
This really puts a lot of the things that have come about recently, the Breonna Taylor thing and George Floyd, all of those violent acts against civilians. Mm-hmm. They're awful. On their own, they're awful. But I didn't know any of this, and it puts those in an even more terrible light, if that's possible, because not only do they not have to get involved if they don't want to, in situations like that, like the Breonna Taylor and George Floyd thing, they are actively involving themselves in a situation that doesn't need it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
They're choosing battles. I'm going to go get this guy because I've got 5 of my buddies with me. We all have guns. They don't. So we're going to do that. But we're not going to stop the guy on the train with the knife stabbing everybody because that's too dangerous for us.
We're putting a lot of faith in the police officer's ability to recognize what's a viable threat and when it's appropriate to get involved.
Yeah.
People who support that say, well, it has to be that way. Otherwise, we live in a police state where you're getting arrested for jaywalking, always. Or you're getting arrested for having an open container, always. Or for smoking within 20 feet of a hospital door, always,
Yeah.
But allowing for that nuance on the part of the police allows them to have better judgment, appropriate judgment on when to get involved, keeps them safe, and keeps us from being over-policed.
But it also allows them to do whatever they want.
Correct. And that's built into the system. Not only do we not have any code that enforces the law enforcement protecting and serving us, but there's no auditing externally. There's no investigation. It's internal affairs for a reason, right?
Yeah.
There's no code of conduct that's universal, comprehensive, that polices the police anywhere. It's all piecemeal. Mm-hmm. What happens when someone's in a chokehold? There's a very specific code of conduct for that in Maine, But there's no comprehensive code of conduct. It's all internal. There's no democratic process that's involved in essentially regulating the police's actions. And oh man, there was this Harvard law professor that put it really interestingly, where he's like, people think of this as a case of bad apples, right? You've heard that before.
Sure.
But it's a case of the whole orchard being unregulated.
Oh.
Which I love.
Yeah.
Right? They're like, some of these apples are nasty. And it's like, no, people are just allowed to pee on the trees. And it doesn't really matter.
This whole thing's a mess.
This whole thing's a fucking mess.
Just burn it down.
Just burn this motherfucker down.
Yeah. We got to plant oranges instead.
And it's crazy to me because, you think about the huge budgets for police agencies, right? The massive budgets. Some cities, like Portland, has a huge policing agency budget.
Oh my gosh. And the equipment that they're allowed to have.
The toys.
I was listening to an NPR story about the NRA and how it went from an enthusiast group to a lobby. Mm-hmm. And the way that they were able to do that was through the police by appealing to police departments and making assault weapons and automatic weapons standard issue. Because before that, you could just bring whatever you want. As a police officer, you can bring whatever firearm you want.
Just on the job?
Yeah. But they, I think it was specifically, I think it was Glock.
Right.
It's like a German company. But, you've seen police officers with assault rifles and they have fucking tanks sometimes. Mm-hmm. Heavy military style gear. And it's really crazy to think about with what you're telling me, that they can use that at their discretion. With
no oversight.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or not, which is the scary part too. It's equally scary when they have those things and decide not to do anything when there is help needed. Like the Uvalde thing. Yeah.
The school thing is really sad. Do you remember the Parkland shooting in Florida a couple years ago? So very similarly, some of the students filed a suit against the police and the school district for not protecting them, thinking, if nothing else, at least the school district had a duty to protect us, right? We were under their care. And a federal judge ruled that the government agencies, quote, had no constitutional duty to protect students who were not in custody.
Insane.
Because that special relationship thing also extends to prisoner and prison, right? If you're in the prison, the prison has a duty to protect you.
Yeah. So you're safer in prison than you are in school.
Yup. Yeah. And when when they cross appealed, the court said that they rejected the argument that the students are in custody of school officials while they're on campus. Custody is narrowly confined to situations where a person loses his or her freedom to move freely and seek assistance on their own, limiting it to prisons, jails, or mental institutions.
Huh.
So, okay, this so far has been really eye-opening, but also
I want to be fair and I don't want to sound one-sided. What are some of the arguments to be made for those rulings? Meaning, what are some of the reasons they're saying? You touched on them too, like having nuance so that they can
not over police us.
So in a situation like a school shooting, are they just relying on those precedents to get them out of a lawsuit and that's it? There's no sort of like, hey, these bad things keep happening. Police departments keep getting sued, so maybe we should change the system? There's none of that.
The problem is there's no, like, we try to do all these things on after the fact, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, they didn't intervene, so we should force the chief of police to resign, you know? Or maybe we can fine the police agency and get a like a payout for the damages ensued. But those are Band-Aid things. Like you're saying, like there needs to be some change in the regulation, but that's not what happens. Getting actual new regulation imposed on a police agency, because of the way that our country is organized, it's shit state by state. Good luck trying to get umbrella regulations on an agency. We have it on like the EPA, you know, like their environmental regulations, but doing it on police agencies is so contentious because of what a political thing that it is now. Think of how unpopular it would be to certain politicians for their constituents to hear, we should really be regulating the police, like across the board. Yeah. There are some politicians who would totally lose their careers over saying something like that.
All of them, probably.
At this point, it'd be very risky. Regardless of how popular it might be in some places. It'd just be impossible to really push that through without a huge change in the understanding of people of what the police are actually supposed to do. And the crazy part is that whole protect and serve thing is so like goofily false because the protect thing, not obligated to protect, right? The serve thing comes into play because we think of them as civil servants, right? Our taxpayer money, my blood, sweat, and money. I'm crying over spilled money. My money is going to these budgets, right? Yeah. So them being civil servants, serve, protect and serve.
Yeah.
No obligation. No obligation to protect. So they're not serving, right? But if we don't pay our taxes, they are allowed to use force to get that money from us.
Yeah. Wow. I wonder how many actual police officers are aware of this.
The sad thing is, a lot of police officers, if you were to ask them, especially active duty ones, like why they're in it, they would say to protect their community.
Right.
To serve their community.
Well, that's why I'm thinking about this, is because, and like, it's not a secret. I mean, well, so my brother is going to be a sheriff, work in the sheriff's department. He's going to be a police officer. If you were to hear this, or if I were to ask him, he would probably say the same thing because you know him.
Yeah.
And
sweet man.
Right. And that's why I kind of think that they don't necessarily understand. I'd be really curious to ask him.
Yeah.
If this kind of thing is talked about in detail so that they actually know what they're getting into. Do you know what I'm getting at here? I do,
and yet I can't imagine that doesn't become abundantly clear as an officer or a sheriff or sheriff's deputy is on the job, because you're getting so many calls, depending on your jurisdiction, that you have to be nitpicky, if you will, about what cases you take, how quickly you follow up on them, what level of force that you use in enforcing things.
Yeah.
You have to pick and choose. And he's going to find out that there are going to be some things that he personally is just not willing to get involved in, to risk his life for.
Right.
And some of them are probably going to end up being kind of petty, you know?
Yeah.
You think about a firefighter, right? The average firefighter would probably tell you the same thing, that they're doing what they do to protect people and to protect people's property and to ensure that the safety of their community is assured, you know?
Right, yeah.
But I don't think you'll find as many instances of a firefighter looking at a burning building and someone trapped inside and going, nah.
Yeah.
Let's watch.
Right.
You know? Mm-hmm. Interestingly, in many states, it is a crime not to help a police officer.
Really?
Yeah. In 2019, Gavin Newsom actually repealed the law in place that would make it a criminal offense not to help. But in Oregon, it is still in place. And it says it's a Class B violation, so it could be fine or jail time. A person commits the offense of refusing to assist a peace officer if upon command by a person known by the person to be a police officer, the person unreasonably refuses or fails to assist in effecting an authorized arrest or preventing another from committing a crime.
But not the other way around.
No.
What the fuck?
So you could be at Safeway, God forbid, and someone is stealing shit.
Yeah.
And they're leaving the place. And a police officer is like, hey, you there. See me? I'm a police officer. Trip that guy. And then hold him down.
Yeah.
If you refuse or you fail to do so, maybe you just don't catch him. And that pisses the police officer off. You could go to jail.
Wow.
Or face some hefty fine.
But if I were to say, hey, police officer, that guy stole my wallet, he's like, sorry, bud.
Sucks to suck.
Yeah. No problem.
No problem.
Wow.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Which is a bummer,
yeah.
right? Because, like, I get it. Like, being a police officer probably fucking sucks, right?
Sure. I mean, like, there's a lot of people out there that don't like you. Just
exactly.
because of the job that you chose.
Yeah. Which is unfortunate because we need people that are in those jobs that are doing it because they genuinely love their community and they want to protect those people regardless of their background, their age, their gender identity, whatever. Like, we want those people as law enforcement. But if we keep ostracizing them and villainizing them, those people are not going to stay in that job.
Right.
Or they're going to be ousted by their peers for not sticking with the troops, you know? It's a lose-lose. It's a loop that once you peel the veil off of it, you realize that there are very little instances where you can truly count on someone responding to that call, following up on that call, and actually helping you.
Yeah.
And if they don't, tough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because where are you going to go?
Where are you going to go?
That's it. That's the end of the road there.
Vigilante shit, as Taylor Swift once said.
Oh, I was thinking Punisher. Wow, that's really interesting. I had no idea about any of that. It seems like, and a lot of people have said this before, and there's like even memes about it, where they talk about the requirements to be a police officer in the United States versus other countries.
Oh, yeah.
Where you actually need a college degree in a lot of cases.
The amount of training.
The training and the continuous training.
Exactly.
Too.
Mm-hmm.
And it does sort of, I don't want to say trickle down necessarily, but it does sort of ripple out into what the departments then become and how that affects the community at large.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Because if it takes that much training to do it, then you are going to weed out all the people that can't hang.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
You're only going to get the people who care about the job.
Or they're really committed to fuckery.
The long con.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, sure. Maybe there's like a handful of those. But a majority are going to be people that are committed to it, right?
And you can assume competency.
Right, exactly. And so with that assumption, as a member of the community, you can then rely on these people to help you and therefore trust your community a little bit more.
Yeah.
Which would then probably ripple out into, I don't know, just like an overall safer sense of being. Whereas if you have a guy who got his GED and just did 8 weeks of of range courses, and then they give him a gun and a car, and like, I mean, maybe it's harder than that. I don't know.
Not in some states.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's tough. And people know that here.
Yep.
People know that it's not super difficult to do. And then if you're asking for help and they don't offer it or they don't give it to you, there's no trust built there.
Right. Exactly.
And so that people are going to, do things themselves.
Buy some
guns, commit violent acts. Vigilante shit.
Vigilante shit.
Yeah.
Both ways.
Well, that's pretty gnarly.
Yeah. Sorry, this was a bummer one.
Yeah, it's okay.
But it's important to know.
Yeah, it's informative. That's good.
Yeah. And now you know.
All right. Thanks, kid.
Yeah, no worries.
I do want to say for the people, for Paul who's listening, for our one fan, Paul.
Hi, Paul.
But we have our shows on YouTube now.
Yeah.
What I would love to hear, because I really don't want it to be a one-sided kind of thing, if people are listening to this and have information that they can offer us to maybe share the other side of it, or if they want to share their own story about what their experience has been, or even like corroborate some of the things you said further, like leave comments in the YouTube space or on Instagram or whatever.
And be mindful that neither of us are experts.
Yeah.
We are unqualified. And the whole point of this show is to share things that have been discovered and share them with enthusiasm. But the pursuit of knowledge is never fully complete without a continuing curiosity and the right answer. So
yeah,
submit your input.
Yeah.
Be a square.
But be nice.
And be nice. Yeah. Assume ignorance over malice.
Cool. Well, thank you, kid.
Absolutely.
All right. Bye.
Goodbye.